Hey guys, how we doing today? Yesterday I did a live stream in that I showed the carving I've been working on, which is this fella here, little hiking old man hiking dude. And a lot of questions came up about painting techniques and stuff. And although I have a video already on how to paint your carving, I thought it would be fun just to mix it up a bit, try a couple different things, and just go for it. I got to paint them anyway, and I thought it might be fun to bring you along with me, and we'll try a couple different things on this one. So, ideally, you can see I've set up my paint station here, but unfortunately, that's not a good place to film from. So, I'm gonna fill up my coffee cup. I'm gonna move a lot of my stuff back to my desk, and we're gonna paint this little fella. Just before we do that though, let's go over the carving now. Obviously I'm gonna remove his stick here, but as you can see, I've got all my edges are clean, and even undercut some of these joints, clothing articles in the hair. Nice sharp clean edges. That's a real key to carving. There's no fuzzy bits left inside. And people have asked me before, like, do you sand? I don't really sand, but is it wrong to take a piece of this like Scotch-Brite stuff and just go over? It's not really a sanding, but just maybe a smoothing. Take some of the real sharp edges that may chip, and I think that's fine. But some guys, it's against the law to to sand your carving, but I don't care if it looks better. And it just kind of, it's not, this is a real fine, I say Scotch-Brite, it's a nice medium between sandpaper and like steel wool for finish. So I like to do that just to take any real sharp edges that will probably end up chipping. And yeah, and if you had dirty paws when you carved it, you can wash them up with soap and water. But that's all I do is just give it a quick once over. Not really a sanding, just kind of a smoothing of some of the sharp edges. But all right, so once you got all your edges nice and clean and sharp and no fuzzies, then we can proceed. So what I've got here is a little pot of clean water to clean my brushes. Got my paint tray, brushes, assortment of paints and whatnot. But right off the bat, what we're going to do is we're going to paint the eyeballs, because I think this one here we're going to paint the eyeballs, and then we're going to put linseed oil on the whole thing to kind of seal it. So first things first is I'm going to paint the eyeballs. I'm going to use a white solid, no mixing, solid white paint, and we're going to paint the eyeballs up. And just paint on that white solid. Right. It's finicky for old shaky hands, but I'm using a bright white. Some people like to use a bit of an off-white, and it kind of makes sense. Your eyes don't really shine, but since I'm going to put oil over top of it when it's painted, it takes a little bit of that brightness away. Now, if you want to speed up your painting process, you've seen me show before, I've got a hair dryer over there. So in between paint colors, if I can't switch like from arms to shoes to hair, if it's too close to each other, I'll just take the hair dryer and give it a little bit of a dry with that. But that's basically the whites of the eyes, and we'll dry that, and then I'm going to come back and I guess his eyes are going to be blue, so we'll paint in, probably pencil in a little circle first, and then fill it in with blue, and we'll go from there. You can see I've just kind of penciled in rough idea, just so I don't get carried away. The full circle. This guy has no eyelids, so he's got pretty big eyeballs. Just take your time with the eyeballs. I can feel myself already rushing to, because I'm filming, but I can't do that. Slow her down. All right. That's about all I'm going to do with the blue. Yeah, we got big eyeballs on that guy. Next up is the black centers, pupils. I'm going to keep the pupils right in the center of the eyeball in this one. He's going to be looking directly straight at you. And if I had used a different color, a lighter color or whatnot, I might be more inclined to take like a micro pen and just draw the outer circle of the eye. But that's dark enough that I don't think I need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint the black pupils right dead center. Just leaving a ring of color around. You can see that. All right. There's so many ways to paint eyeballs, and I'm no true artist in that area, but some people shade the colors and give different angles and whatnot, but I'm simple. So that's all we're going to do with that, and then we're going to come back and put the white highlight, the little shine, and that'll be our eyeball. This is a stylus. If you have a toothpick will work, a tiny brush will work. But I'm just going to dip that right in my my paint here. I'm just going to put a dab, just a touch. Just going to touch the eyeball, and I'm going to keep it the same side. And this is just the reflection of a light, so that he's looking. The light's the same way. So, and that's it. That's our eyeball totally done. So I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to seal the whole guy with linseed oil. I just keep a little bit in a little baby food jar just to keep it convenient, so I'm not always pouring it out. And I keep my brush, I have a dedicated brush just for linseed oil, and I keep it in a little bit of a cleaning mix. But the idea behind this is to seal the carving. Now, a lot of guys use a spray, like a matte varnish, a matte finish, and that works great too. I actually went to go pick some up this week to try it, and of course, hardware stores are closed right now, so at least they are here. So I'm going to stick with linseed oil, but yeah, you can use any kind of a sealer just to seal it. And yeah, so I'm just going to dip my brush, and I'm going to paint. I'm going to go fairly light because I don't want to wait too long. I don't want to have to wait for it to dry. But this is one of my favorite parts. I'm just seeing that it's just like same idea as when I wet the carvings to show you. It just highlights everything. So just give it a nice light coating of linseed oil. But that is the idea with the linseed oil. And if you had time, and what I've done in the past too, if I wasn't going to finish painting it, ideally you would you could just go out and throw them straight in a pail of linseed oil and just let them dry. So as it is now, I'm going to do this, and I am going to let it dry. I'm going to wipe up any excess with a paper towel, and then I'm going to let it dry to the touch, but I don't have time to let it thoroughly dry. But ideally you would just walk away and come back another time. But anyway, there he is, coated in linseed oil. And that alone, like, honestly, that's a fun look. Just like that. But we're going to add some color regardless. I'm surprised the oil really went dark on this guy. You can see, let's look at see how the wood makes all the difference. I did the same thing with him, and see how pale faced he is. Look at that. So I don't mind. It's okay. I'm just surprised is all. The color is gonna bring it all together anyway. So anyway, I've let that sit for a bit. Probably not long enough, but regardless, we're gonna just go right at it. And I think I'm going to start with the pants. Now, just to get the recipe right up front, I usually just put, you know, not that much. So hard to tell. That's a couple, 3 drops. And in my mind, I always say like 1 drop of paint to about 8 drops of water, but I don't count nothing. I just really wet it up so that I know that it's going to be wet enough to be more like a stain. So you don't have to get too caught up in the recipe, but that's what I'm going to do for all the colors. Is I'm going to mix them with water, and then you'll see how they soak in. It looks more like a stain than a coating. Could have went with a bigger brush. So when I stress the sharp edges, you can see I can just kind of run that paintbrush close, and it kind of finds the edge all on its own. It doesn't bleed up because there's a cut, and it keeps it clean, so you're not bleeding into each other colors like that. I like to just go and outline everything, and then I'll come back and just fill it in. Now, I'm sure you don't want to sit here and watch me paint the whole thing. So I will I'll leave you here, and I'll finish it on my own. Got our blue jeans all done. You can tell if I had waited for the oil to dry, it would be probably more uniform, but to me that looks a little more worn, a little more washed, so I don't mind that look either. But I do know for a fact if I had let it dry, it would be much more uniform. But carrying on, I've mixed up some gray here, and I'm going to give them a gray vest. Very, very light gray. I think we're going to contrast it with kind of a green shirt. So we're gonna give him a really light gray vest, and then we'll do the shirt. Now he's gonna have grayish white hair as well. So I want to keep this not don't really want to match the hair either. So I'm going to keep the two grays a little bit different. I never did give my mandatory linseed speech either. If you're dealing with linseed oil and you use a rag, make sure you clean that rag up properly. I've never had it happen to me, but a friend of mine was doing it with the floor. Mind you, he was being very sloppy and really filled a rag with it, but let it sit. It will self-combust. It's a scary thing. But see that? Very, very subtle gray on there. And on the front side too, see how he's got there's buttons on there? I'm going to go right over top of the buttons and not pay them any mind, because I'm going to be making them black, so I can just dab the black over top. So this is why we kind of do things in an order. So I will finish up this vest, and then we'll move on to the shirt. Very, very subtle color, but we'll make that pop a little bit. I got some green mixed up here. I'm going to do the shirt. And that's going to, I just like the softness. You'll see in the finished carving, but I really like how soft the colors look when you do it this way. I don't know how better to describe it, but real soft look to it. I didn't jump to the hair. You can see I'm painting two things side by side, but I also like to have something to put my hands on. So I kept the foot and the head unpainted to this point, so I can have little finger grips. Always keep an eye on on your hands, because I've done it more than once where I grabbed something that wasn't dry yet and I move my hand all around the carving, and I end up with paint smears all over. But there, a little green against the gray. I hung his shirt out the bottom here too, just for something a little bit different. Kind of gives that whole angle effect that he's kind of leaning to one side. So just get some green up in there. A lot of folks don't like painting. A lot of carvers don't like to paint, but I kind of enjoy painting. So that's our green with our vest. I'll finish the other arm. And I guess it's time to move on to the hair and the beard after that. I'm going to go with a gray, a little bit darker. But you can think of this as more of an undercoat, where I'm going to dry brush some white over top. So this is just going to be a quick undercoat, I guess you say, primer, undercoat. You're still going to see it in spots underneath, but I'm going to dry brush it with some white after. But again, I will finish up his beard and his hair, and then we'll come back and have a go with the boots maybe. There we've got his hair all done. Now, while we're waiting for that to dry a little bit, we'll mix up a little bit of brown. And we're gonna just a little bit of brown. I'm gonna do the shoes. Now I got big tread on the bottom of those shoes, so I'm gonna make them black. So just the top part is going to be leather. You can almost leave them as is, but we'll do the shoes brown. And then the reason I'm doing it this way is with the black soles, I have no issue at all with painting over where the black is going to go, because the black covers absolutely everything. So if you think of it like that, always do the lighter color first. If you might want to slop it over, because the dark will cover it up. Here again, it's hardly visible, the color, just very subtle. That oil, like I said, this wood took the oil a little bit darker than it normally does, but that's okay. Give them some leather boots. I'm going to mix up some black right away, and we'll do the soles. How about his stick? We're going to paint the stick the same color as the leather boots, and then we'll just take some of the black and we'll just put some streaks on it to highlight it. But yeah, don't forget the stick. Don't forget the stick. Don't forget the eyebrows. I always forget the eyebrows too. So before I mix the black, I'm going to take some of the solid black. Can't forget about our buttons. I'm just going to put a couple of dabs of paint on the buttons just to highlight them. Now we can add black. Add water to the black. Wet her up. We'll attack the soles. All right. Just like so. This is where we're at. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of this white paint. And I'm just going to put almost 50-50, I think, with the water. I'm going to mix her up real good. And I just want to take a bigger brush. Let's see. A brush like that, like so. And I'm going to wipe it on my drop sheet first. I'm just going to go all around it. going to go over this whole thing like this, like I'm doing, and then I'm going to come back, I guess, and I'm going to just use solid paint, solid white paint, and I'm just going to hit all the peaks with the dry brush. This is a failed dry brush attempt. But it's okay to have the layers. Some guys do 3 or 4 layers on the beard. So let's pretend that that's what I'm doing today. Yeah, so I'm just gonna run around and do this all around. And you can see a layer. And then I think I'm just gonna use solid paint and do a proper dry brush and just hit all the high points. So I'm just gonna put some solid paint on my brush and just, there we go. See how that, yeah, we just hit those edges. Very light. There are special dry brushes, but just kind of fanning it on there. And I don't know if you can see that, but I can see that. I like it. Yeah, I meant to do that. Yeah. This is the part of the video they say he has no idea what he's doing. But if that's the case, I can't believe it took you that long. I'm just going to go across like that. See how we're just catching the peaks. See that side? Well, I'm happy with that. Can I be happy? I can be happy with that. That's not arrogant. Alright, I'm going to leave it alone. We're going to put some blush on his lip and his cheeks. And before I forget, I got my stick. I'm just going to take a little bit of that black. I'm just going to put a couple little stripes on here just to kind of dirty it up. And dip it in the water. That stick looks like it's been sitting on the ground. I have one of these little containers where I save some of these mixes, like in my tray, and I have one here that's a red, and it's super watered down. So if you're gonna make this, over water it down and play with it, because it's such a finicky. You don't want red, you just want this very subtle, you see that? Hardly even shows, but it's there. Just very subtle pink rouge. The beauty with the oil, if this was dry wood, it would just soak it right in. But with this bit of oil here, you can kind of play with it and get those cheeks. See that? Like that. This is one. This guy spent a lot of time outside. He's very, very tanned. That's good. I'm just going to blend it all around. Now we've got his hand too. We can't forget about his hand. Same thing. Just going to very lightly just give it a tinge of color. Just gonna blend everything. There we go. See that? I'm gonna get him outside. We'll get him in a good light outside, and we'll wrap this up. Okay, here's our little hiking buddy here. Put him right there in the wood pile. And then give him some company. Oh, hello, Mr. Bear. Another hiking guy coming up behind him with the same stick. And then Jim's gonna come and say hi. So there you go, guys. There is our little project for today. Just something a little bit different I wanted to try, and just bring you along on a little painting paint along. So I hope you like it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, take it easy. See ya.